On the
Is
table?
it there?
On the table? No, I guess it was moved.
No, I must have taken it back, I think. Did I? Why would I have done that? I don't know, but I did. Well, anyway, I don't know whether
I'll
I
just
can.
ask you.
I gave it some thought.
Oh.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Is it there? Here it is.
Oh, can you reach it?
Yeah, yeah.
It's the very last page.
Yeah.
And do you have like one, we usually do like one word description or anything brief?
Jerry Goldsmith. Well, I've already given my
Right.
description
And
of
Grant
him.
Tinker.
Grant Tinker. I've got intelligent, astute. Pat Weaver.
I'm going to ask you about some of the people you've worked with over the years and to give me a 1 or 2 word description of them. We've talked about Jerry Goldsmith and Sam Rolfe and Grant Tinker and a bit about Pat Weaver. What are your memories of David Sarnoff?
David Sarnoff, nice.
Why just nice?
Because he was nice to me once.
Okay. Ted Mills, who was your assistant in Chicago?
Bright.
Robert Montgomery.
Interesting.
Just interesting.
Huh?
Just interesting? Is there?
Yes, you want one word.
Oh, you can give me more than one word.
Interesting and sometimes cruel.
Okay. William Paley.
Extremely bright.
Frank Stanton, president of CBS.
Very wise.
Jerry Davis, who was a writer and then later vice president of your company.
Yeah. A good comedy writer.
And later, was he a director later as well? Or producer?
He produced, yes. Produced several comedies.
Ethel Wynant.
A fine casting director.
Sidney Lumet.
One of the best directors.
You know, you worked with Dean Hargrove on Man from U.N.C.L.E., who's now a major producer in his own right. What was your experience with him? How would you describe him?
Oh, I should describe him as being a kind man who is very talented.
Dan Petrie.
One of the best.
Dina Reese.
I always felt that if you couldn't get Lumet or Dan Petrie, and you could get me, you were ahead of the game.
Dina Reese Evans, one of your early mentors.
She was a wonderful teacher from Cleveland who got me started as a writer.
Pearl Buck.
Not a very thoughtful person. No, it's a bad thing to say it that way. I rest.
Okay. Gene Roddenberry.
Inventive, of course. An agitated man.
Herb Brodkin.
The best of all live television directors, producers.
Bob Finkel.
Excellent, particularly in musical shows.
Richard Chamberlain.
A fine actor and a very patient one.
Jack Newman.
A lovely man who pretends to be tougher than he really is.
Robert Vaughn.
A pro.
Lord Lou Grade.
He's fine. He's fine when it comes to dancing. He's a very good dancer, you know. Yes.
But you don't think much of him as a producer or studio head?
Well, I suppose so. He's a multimillionaire. He's now Lord Grade. So he made the grade.
I guess so. Rip Torn.
He tells a good story about his mother, who he introduced his mother to the Queen, and the Queen said, "I know you must be very proud of your children." And she said to the Queen, "I'm sure you're proud of yours too," which I thought was kind of funny.
Rip Torn.
I don't know him very well, really.
I'm going to mispronounce this, and I apologize. Jules Herbeveau?
Jules Herbeveau, yeah. Well, he was a perceptive man.
David Levy?
Very bright and perceptive.
And finally, your wife, Aileen.
A lovely, lovely lady.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us and walk us through your wonderful career. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks to all of you, because it takes a lot of people to do one of these interviews.
I just want to thank you for taking the time today to walk us through your career and share your experiences with us. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you. It's certainly been a happy experience for me. I'm a little tired, but I'm glad that I'm doing it. And I thank all of you, because it takes a lot of people to do even what to most people would seem a simple thing of doing an interview. But you've all helped and been very patient. Thank you.
Thank you.
When I was a director of a theater in Saginaw, Michigan, I got tired of the stage scenery, and so I devised something which we called the arena theater, in which the people were sat around, and I got away from the scenery, and it was a production of a play called Green Grow the Lilacs that called out for being outdoors, and there was a scene on a haystack, and when I did it as an arena theater, of course, they were on a ladder instead of a real haystack. In 1934, I had a job as a truck driver, but I went to a little theater in Cleveland, Ohio. It was called the Cleveland Heights Civic Theater, and they made a cowboy out of me. In this picture here, there's a little arrow pointing to me. That was my first acting job. This is John Cassavetes on the right, and next is Janice Rule, and then I am in the third position, and the last on the left is Robert Sherwood. He was, as many may know, one of the great playwrights, and also in motion pictures. And we did a production, live television, of a story and that he had written, and we found that it was a very successful production. Here we are at the seashore, photographing a scene from The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Robert Vaughan is on the right, half hidden, looking towards the camera. This was before you had really very light cameras to be handheld. The news of the surf was terrific, so we had to dub in his lines later. Now there is a man I know very well myself, the Writers Guild of America on strike against The Man from U.N.C.L.E., The Girl from U.N.C.L.E., and Jericho. Those were all shows that I had on the networks at the time, and I also was an executive with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, who did not think kindly of me striking. But I felt that the Writers Guild needed a new contract, and so I supported it. This is a picture taken on location on a Marine base near San Diego, and on the right is our lieutenant. And it was called The Lieutenant, and Next to him is the commandant of the base, and of course, on the far right is Norman Felton. And I must tell you a story behind this one, because they were in trouble. My company, doing the lieutenant down there, were in a lot of trouble, and they couldn't seem to work it out. And so I got into my car and I drove down to San Diego, and I went out into the field where they were, and there I saw Gene Roddenberry getting ready to have his picture taken with the commandant, and he was laughing and enjoying it, and yet they were in trouble. He was supposed to be the producer at that time. So I went up there and I said, Gene, step forward, please. He did. I said, what's going on here? He said, well, I'm having my photo taken with the commandant. I said, no, you're not. You're going to go right over there where they're having trouble, and you settle it. You're the producer. So he gave me a look, and he left, and I took his place. That's the end of that. Well, here we are in 1956 in a control room of a studio on, I think it was one on 66th Street in New York. But anyway, Herbert Brodkin, the best of all producers, was in charge. But in the picture, you'll see the lady who was my script lady, and I'm in the middle as the director, and the switcher is with the earphones on. And it's a typical picture of a control room in those days. This is, of course, Helen Hayes, a noted actress who played in a production that we made on the Robert Montgomery show, based on the story of Victoria Regina. And she was delightful to work for. She had a good sense of humor. We had to kinescope one portion of it, and at the time I was running out of airtime, and I finally had to go out and say she dropped something, and I had to redo it. And I went out again, and I said, now this is the last chance I'll do it. 3 times we've had something go wrong here, but it's not going to happen again because this is the last chance. And so we did it. And it came off perfectly, better than ever before. And she came to see me and said, Mr. Felton, was that nice now? I said, nice? I thought it was brilliant. She said, I should have done it that way the first time. And she did do it the best the last time. Now this illustrates a scene outside of a prison camp, and it is, to my mind, the finest directing that I ever did. And it was from a script by Ernest Kinoy, and it was called A Walk Down the Hill. It was a story about a man who is asked to give more than the usual prisoner things to a commandant in the German group, and he is asked what religion, and he says Protestant, and he was actually Jewish. And so in the course of the story, he has to examine why he said that and what he really stood for. And it's a wonderful story, and I have a kinescope of that one. This was 1955, The Mother Bit, a Studio One, which I directed, and Diana Hyland, who was not in the cast, took a picture of me. And I'm giving notes to the cast before going on the air. And the lady with the dark dress on was Bonnie Bartlett. It was my last hurrah, you might call it. Sam Rolfe on the far right, and Jill Ireland, who was then the wife of David McCallum. And after that figure leaning over, and behind him is Joe Calvelli, and he was our story editor. I'm sorry to say that all three are not with us any longer. The one with the glasses on, which is me, well, you can hear my voice, that's all. This is my wife, Aline Felton. On our honeymoon, Aline passed away a year and a half ago from the motion picture Country Home, where I am speaking at the present time. And she was a wonderful person and a tremendous help to me in my life.